Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. All right, so what did you do after your master's degree?
So after my master's, I went to work for a research consulting firm in Kigali, Rwanda. And so I was there for about 5 months working as a research intern. And so there...
You applied there?
Yeah, I applied there. I got super lucky.
Why?
Because I interviewed them. I went through with 3 interviews or so, and then they told me they couldn't offer the position because the timelines didn't work out. And then a week later, they contacted me and then okay, would you be interested in starting a bit later? And I was like, okay, why not? So yeah, I got a bit lucky because initially I didn't get the position. Then they came back and gave it to me. So a stroke of luck.
That's interesting.
A stroke of luck landed me in East Africa.
Oh, so what are you doing there?
So there, so most of the clients were NGOs and NGOs, Rwandan government, and then some UN agencies as well. So there I was working on a variety of projects. So I think the biggest one, I was working on a project with the Rwandan Revenue Authority, and they were trying to collect data from their electronic billing receipts. So they have all this data that's coming through with the electronic receipts. And what's fantastic about all this data is it tells you everything that's going on in the economy, right? Well, the formal economy at least. So one of the key things was to figure out how can we take this data and translate it into something that's usable, something that we can analyze. So we were applying machine learning algorithms to really turn all taking receipt data and turning it into usable data. So what did the machine learning algorithms do? So imagine, right, a human can look at a receipt and tell that something is milk right away. So it will say MLK 1L. Every human will look at that and say that's milk 1 liter. A machine cannot learn that. A machine does not know that because milk is spelled wrong. 1L, what does this mean? And and it's too expensive to hire humans to input all of this data. So what you can do is you can train the algorithms to catch all these spelling errors, turn it into milk, and then learn. If you just have a human tell it for maybe 10,000 entries or 20,000 entries, what they are, you can just have that algorithm essentially learn what to classify. And then this data can become extremely valuable because if you're able to measure, what the transactions in an economy are, where they're happening, what quantities, you can set up early warning systems for food shortages, you can predict economic downturns, all sorts of things. So this was one of the main projects I was working on there. But I also worked on developing surveys for gender-based violence research. So all sorts of stuff. Working on surveys and data analysis for programs to increase coffee yields. So there was it was actually a perfect fit for me because I got to work on a variety of things.
Yeah. Because you're handling data from different places, different topics.
Exactly. So I think part of my research strategy was to specialize more in data analysis and quantitative skills rather than topical knowledge, because it's the same data analysis and quantitative skills underlying all of the issues. So this was really my focus on trying to develop these so that I can learn the topics as I go, but so that I wouldn't corner myself into one topic and then get bored with it after 2 years. So yeah.
What did you do after? Now, is it 6 months or how many months did you stay in Rwanda?
I think 5-6 months, something like that.
5. Yeah. So what did you do after that?
Then I started my PhD and moved to the Netherlands in January,
Oh, so you were looking for your PhD when you're in Rwanda?
Yeah. So I had it set up before because I had accepted the position in Rwanda, which was a fixed term internship position. And then at the same time, I was applying to a bunch of places. So at the same time, the PhD opportunity came in. I had that set up, I think, right before I went to Rwanda. I wasn't 100% sure whether I wanted to do the PhD. It's something that I considered, and
Why?
Because it's such an undertaking, and I think I was tired of classwork, of coursework, and I felt like the PhD was a really huge undertaking, and then there's all sorts of things, right? It's kind of it's such an independent path as well, and it's okay, do I really want to work independently so much, or do I want to be a part of a team? Do I really need the PhD to establish a research career? If not, then I might be wasting my time, because it's essentially taking a very poor paying job for 4 years. And I don't know, I thought it was a bit risky because, okay, what if I take this for 4 years and it turns out I'm not a very good researcher, and then now I just have a PhD, but my research quality is not very good, and then this is just going to put me back into the positions that I would have gotten without the PhD. So what's the point? So I think I was very on the fence about doing it or not, and I also didn't have research questions that were burning on my mind, and research topics that I was I can't wait to dive into this and do this for 4 years. I didn't really have that. So it was almost okay, I go into the PhD and I'm going to have to find my way a little bit. So I think a bit of it's just the fear of the unknown. I didn't know what I was getting into. I saw it as a bit risky, and so I was really on the fence about doing it before I went in. And then I also quickly realized that that's not really normal. Most people who do PhDs, they're sure about it. And honestly, I wouldn't advise anybody to do it the way I did. I really struggled in my first year because of that. So when I left Rwanda, I went straight into the PhD, which started in January in the Netherlands, which was a bad idea for a whole different reason. The first class I went to, it was at 8:30 a.m. It's dark outside. I was so cold, and I was just looking around what kind of life decisions have I made to end up here? A month ago, I was in Kigali and it was fine.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can imagine the difference. Enjoying sun for 5 months.
Yeah, exactly. But
Then
it's
going
just
to
cold and dark, and so I think, yeah, in the Netherlands was a bit funny to move to at that time of year because people stay indoors a lot more. It's a lot less social. So I think at the beginning of the PhD, it was also like hard to integrate into into the Netherlands. Yeah, but all in all, I enjoyed it. Yeah, and I have no regrets now. I can't believe we've been talking so long. Feel free to tell me when to shut up.
No, I'm not going to do that. Not at all. I actually want you to talk more and more and more.
So